that again. Hello, my name's Adam.
And I'm Kelvin.
And this is One for the Books. And today we're going to be talking about the Habsburg dynasty.
So, when we I was watching a video and then I seen the Habsburgs and I was like, hey Adam, this kind of looks like something we should talk about because it's very kind of Game of Thrones-esque, where it's this big dynasty family. There's a lot of incest, there's power, there's betrayal, there's more incest, and there's a lot of incest.
Yeah, so there's incest and there's, as you said, betrayal, and two like kingdoms kind of fighting each other the whole time. And this family name ends up being like at the center of European politics for the, like, I don't know how long.
Well, they're definitely in power for 5 centuries, and that's just like,
but they're around for about five more centuries, like on either side of that, which is insane. So their main kind of power was one of the Habsburg family was in the chair of the Holy Roman Emperor from about 1440 the whole way up until the early 1800s. So you have a good 400 years there of power. But they date back all the way as far as 900s. But what lands did they take?
So they always held like the Holy Roman Empire. They always had a say for that period of time for 5 centuries. But they also sent like their daughters to be married into other families and their sons to be married into families, and they took land like Austria-Hungary was that's where they started off. Then Croatia, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and then they would also hold power in Brazil and Mexico. So again, as I said to you earlier, it's like they were the first empire where the sun never sets. As they have these lands in Brazil, but they also have these power. Obviously, it's not the same. Even in Europe, they weren't all friends with each other. They'd still be rivals with each other. So the Habsburgs didn't.
They'd be cousins.
They'd be cousins.
They'd be cousins fighting against each other.
Killing cousins.
Yeah. So that family dates back. Now, this is where things go a bit awry, because throughout history we find different sources, and all these different sources say different things. The closer you are to the time, the better those sources end up to be. But when you're studying things that happened 1,000 years ago, sources and dates and people can get a bit mixed up,
especially when a lot of them have the same names. When you're coming across hundreds of Philips and Charleses.
Was that Charles first, Charles the second? So basically the first time we see the Habsburg name is their castle in Switzerland, and it's built kind of late 10th century, 985 AD ish, and I found that it was built by Radbot of Cletico, whereas Kelvin saw something different.
I saw it was Guntram the Rich. Now, Guntram the Rich is an interesting fellow where he was given a lot of land, northern Switzerland kind of and surrounding areas, but then a lot of land was taken off him. But he kind of made his homestead in this House Habsburg type of thing. Yeah. So maybe it was Radbot who kind of made it, and then Guntram kind of renovated it or whatever it was. But as I was reading it, I was like, Guntram the Rich. That is a really cool name.
Having an adjective after your name.
Having an adjective after your name should be a thing that isn't so kind of weirded out nowadays.
Medieval. You wanted it to be
I wanted
modern.
to modernize.
Okay.
So I was like, what would your name be if you were to have an adjective after your name now?
Adam the something.
Adam the something.
Hungry? It's a country, but it's also very true to life.
Okay, so Adam the Hungry.
Yeah.
Like, would you be like Adam the Gluttonous back then?
Oh yeah, very like I think gluttonous is so much worse than hungry though.
It does have a lot of negative connotations towards it.
What would yours be?
I think I would want to be like Calvin the Cool, or like Calvin the Crazy, something funky.
Yeah, okay.
But obviously they didn't say cool back then.
Calvin the Jester maybe, or
Calvin
something.
the Jester, Calvin the Wise, Calvin the Unwise.
Calvin the Sporadic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we can move on.
Let me know what you would pick. We'll probably do something
on Instagram
or something.
Box. This could be the intro.
Go follow us. One for the Books podcast. Plug.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram, Spotify,
Apple Podcasts if they let us.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, and our YouTube. So so the Habsburg rule goes all the way, as you said, from like early 10th century, and that carries on all the way till the end of World War One. Okay, now obviously they're not in power the whole time, because we probably would have heard about that, but this dynasty and this legacy runs the whole way through. basically 11th of November in 1918 was when World War One ended, and Emperor Charles I recognizes Austria's right to rule its own state affairs and kind of renounces his right to rule. And this sees the Habsburg not collapse because it was already quite
and
small.
they didn't actually, they were like the Hungary side of it, and they didn't accept to the Austrian. So officially they were never put out of power.
Yeah,
but they were.
They didn't have much. Yeah, exactly. And much like, I think there's only 7 kind of kingdoms now that still have a king and queen, and all of them don't have any rulers. Don't have any kind of say in their state affairs. This UK and Spain and Holland, and none of those countries have rulers that rule. They just have rulers that are like a
figurehead.
Yeah, figurehead of the country. So as you said, Habsburg is absolutely massive. If you looked at other podcasts, YouTube videos, films, and books and stuff, this goes. It's impossible to get 1,000 years done in 20 minutes. So what me and Calvin did was we took a figure from the Habsburg family each, and we kind of talked about them. So Calvin, who did you take?
I picked Maria Theresa.
Maria Theresa, right? Okay.
And Adam, who'd you pick?
His name was Charles II of Spain, King Carlos. But let's talk about Maria Theresa first.
Maria first, okay. So the reason why I kind of saw Maria as being this kind of most important figure in the Habsburgs, which is my opinion, is she is the mother of Marie Antoinette, that's a good thing to do. She also had 16 kids. So if this will kind of give you a little taste of how intermarrying worked in medieval Europe and kind of later early modern Europe, whereas a lot of people had a lot of kids and they would marry them off to different empires, and that's how they got more power. And this is prevalent with the Habsburgs, as that was their main thing they did. And that's how they branched out to these different areas. But she also had 56 grandchildren.
56 grandkids.
56 grandkids is a lot of grandkids.
Well, when you have how many kids?
16 children.
16 children, 56 grandchildren.
That's a lot of kids to look after. That's a strange
massive.
Christmas.
Yeah, you're looking at least 16 by 4 is.
That's a lot of presents to buy.
45 is at least 4 to 5 kids each, which is crazy. That's horrendous maths. I'm so sorry.
We're a history podcast. We're not a maths podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
okay.
So
we don't have time to edit that out. So we're just going, okay.
Maria Theresa. Now she was never throughout early modern Europe. It was a very patriarchal society.
It was the patriarchy. There was no women ruling at the time, and this is why I think she's such a trailblazer.
Yeah. Whereas 5 years before she was born, her father, he put this bill forward called pragmatic sanction.
He was like running around Europe, basically like sign this.
Yeah. So
no one would.
He couldn't. He didn't have a son. He tried a good bit.
a lot of times,
and no sons popped out. So he was like, I'm going to lose my grip on this huge empire that I've gained if I do not have a son. So just in case, I'm going to put this pragmatic sanction forward. And this was a big thing for Europe. As Europe, it was very patriarchal, and we see that kings throughout the whole of time. And no woman had ever been in charge of the Holy Roman Empire, ever.
So what happens when the father dies then? So
the father dies. Bear in mind, she was never trained to be this leader. She was never.
Yeah. It's very middle ages. Though the men are trained to fight and be a nobleman, when the women are trained to train the young and like embroider and knit and play music and stuff.
Yeah.
So she's never taught diplomacy. And I think she's only 23 then when her father dies, and she's kind of thrown into the middle of this.
She took the Austrian throne at the age of 23. But the not funny thing, but the kind of quirky thing about it is when she took the throne, 2 months after she took the throne, people were like, she has no diplomatic powers. She has a lot of rich land. Why do we not just take it? So then she went into her first war 2 months after she took the throne. She ended up winning that war because they had a claim on her illegitimate land as she was a female ruler, and they didn't think. So his uncle's sons would have their own claim on this land, but she fought them off, and she got the power of England. She called England over to help her and stuff like that. So she kind of got these ties around.
She gets some help there from her husband as well, which I find really interesting. She marries Stefan, who wasn't the father's choice, because she got married, obviously, you know, she's well younger than 20 when she gets married at this stage, and which was the kind of the rite of passage back then, to get married off young to another noble family's child, which would end up usually being like a cousin or something like that. But here, she marries Franz Stefan for love rather than money, or rather for power, which is a rare thing back then. And it's surprising that the father is so allowing of this, Charles VI, to the Holy Roman Emperor at the time. But you know, I suppose the reasons are unknown. But he allows that to happen, and they get married happily ever after. So it's kind of under his army as well that she's kind of being protected. But
yeah, but I think overlooking that, because she does have a couple more wars in between, but I didn't think that was the most important thing while researching her. I found out that her reforms or her time in charge was kind of the most important thing, where she had 3 big reforms that would kind of influence Europe for the years to come. The first one would be that she would start up compulsory education. So it wasn't a big thing in Europe at the time where you had to go to school or anything, but she thought more of it, not in her own good heart, that she felt like if her society was better educated, she would have more money. Secondly, there was a high mortality rate in childbirth. So obviously, with everyone having kids, she had 16 of her own and then 56 grandkids. So she was like, how do I make this safer? How do I do that? So she started the first maternity hospital.
Brilliant.
Which is great. And she made it so that any midwives that worked at these hospitals would have to be qualified. Whereas in early medieval or early modern Europe, could just be
anybody that felt like they could.
If you thought you could deliver a baby, you'd go deliver that baby. It wouldn't be anything. You wouldn't have to show anything. So yeah, these were the big kind of things that she introduced, and in the next 100 years or so, other countries around Europe would take from her and would learn and would start to implement the very similar things. But I just felt that was very interesting that she kind of set the way for this reform in Europe to become sanitary, to become like more interested in education. And
absolutely, yeah, daddy.
Yeah.
Great.
That's all I have on her. She was she was a good lady. She actually wasn't a very good lady. She was anti-Semitic,
and there's a whole thing around that we could probably get into another time. But yeah, great. Okay, so there's Maria Theresa.
So
mad on education. Marie Antoinette's ma.
That's on her CV.
That's on her CV. Marie Antoinette's or Maria Theresa's?
Both.
Okay. So my character there was Philip IV. Sorry, not Philip IV. That's his dad. Charles II of Spain. He becomes King of Spain. His parents are Philip the IV and Mariana of Austria, who are actually uncle and niece. Now, you might have heard of this thing called the Habsburg jaw, and if you have, this is why. Now I know that I think Charles II is somehow related to Mary Theresa, but well, we can.
Yeah,
who knows?
If you, with
siblings,
the family tree is
out there. But Philip and Mariana, uncle and niece, come together. They marry and they have Charles II. So Charles is his eldest son. Happy out, they're delighted. They have a child to take over the thing. So important that when we talk about Charles II, this is Charles II of Spain, not of England. So he is the king of Spain. Sorry, he's born in 1661, and he has this thing called the Habsburg jaw or the Habsburg chin. And basically, this is an underbite. Hopefully, you can get a picture. You can put it somewhere here. It's a chin. It has an underbite, and Charles was so bad that his front teeth wouldn't actually touch his bottom. Now, this, many people have this type of chin nowadays, and underbites, and of course that has nothing to do with anything. But because Charles II became from the Habsburg, he was 100 times more likely to have these deformities because he was a product of inbreeding, and inbreeding is a massive thing that goes through all of the Habsburg family at some stage or another. Now it skips certain generations and it skips a lot of the people, and they're lucky. But King Carlos, or King Charles as we call him, is really kind of gets it in the neck in terms of how bad he has it. So And to put this into context, his mom and dad were niece and uncle, and 7 of his 8 great grandparents were all Habsburgs. They all had the Habsburg second name.
Yeah.
So not great. His mother was also his first cousin. What?
That's I don't know how that works out.
I couldn't tell you, but I promise it's true. So this man could not stand unaided. He needed help the whole time, and due to this, he was impotent as well. His legs and his arms, it was completely deformed in his birth, and that never worked. He died at 39. Spoiler, but yeah, basically, he priests were called to the castle when he was a child, and then when he got older to try and exorcise him, but again, nothing happened because, as you know,
from his birth, they were just waiting for his death. Any higher ups were just like, this is not going to be the man who rules our empire.
Yeah, well, he did for a while, which is was surprising in the end. So they tried to exorcise him, but obviously it wasn't the devil; it was genetics. He actually ended up getting the name Carlos the Bewitched, which I know that you found really tough.
Yeah, I just felt like you have these people like Guntram the Rich, and then like Frederick the Wise,
Vlad the Impaler,
and then you're just Carlos the Bewitched.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just bad luck.
They did an autopsy after he died, and they said that his organs were so deformed, were ridiculously reformed, that they thought it was actually witchcraft at the time. It wasn't like a thing. It was, maybe the lungs were a little bit out of shape or something. It was complete. It didn't look like the inside of a normal
By
body.
the age of 20, he was said to be bald, senile, and just crazy. Like, he was just crazy. He was going mentally insane as well.
Yeah, I think Philip. There's a story about Philip as well, that he used to he used to decorate his room with these paintings. I'm not sure the artist, but it was all people eating each other and this mad stuff that wasn't of its time at all. This is kind of on the brink of the Enlightenment, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, he dies, and when that happens, then France kind of comes in and takes over Spain for a short while, and this. I think his granddad is Maximilian, or his great granddad is Maximilian, and Maximilian.
His great great grandfather is Maximilian the First.
The first, and what Maximilian wants to do is spread this Habsburg dynasty more than it has ever been before, which is probably why the
I think he was the one who kind of just made sure that
whoever stayed in the family,
his kids would marry his own cousins and stuff like that.
So then France took over, but I'm not sure who it was, whoever was leader of France at the time was also Habsburg. So this continued deformity dynasty would continue on. The Habsburg the Austrian Habsburg family had this motto. It said, "Let others wage war, you fortunate Austria marry," which is fairly fair, which I suppose just makes sense because that's all they did in Austria, in the Habsburg, and in Spain and France and stuff. They waged wars, but they also just married each other, and that's kind of reflective of
which was ultimately their downfall after all. I think the change in opinion of incest, it kind of, as time grew on in Europe, it wasn't seen as cool. And I think that's look, the Habsburg is such a massive topic, but I think too, we looked at their Maria Theresa, who paves the way for all female monarchs and female representatives of the crown throughout the whole world, basically. But I think it was fair to see the high of the Habsburgs to the low of the Habsburgs, where I think we could talk about dozens of other Habsburgs throughout history.
Charles V is a massive emperor. The Holy Roman Empire is a whole other thing, but which the Habsburg had a big role in. But I think to put this into perspective, think back in the Middle Ages, Dark Ages, Black Plague. Yeah, that's where you had the Habsburgs.
Yeah.
But think of Martin Luther and the Reformation. Yeah. You also had the Habsburgs. Yeah. Go back in the middle in the Renaissance, you also had the Habsburgs.
Think about the Industrial Revolution, you have the Habsburgs.
All the way up until World War One. So the Habsburg takes over all of early European.
Any dynasty that can survive that long is definitely has to be one for the books, in my opinion.
We're always going to try and put the title of the podcast in somewhere.
I have to. Yeah. It's like in a movie when someone says the title of the movie and then they're like,
Yeah, fair enough. Right, I think that's us.
I think that's it.
I'd love to keep talking, but I don't think we're going to get anywhere with it.
No, I think this is a nice little bite-sized episode. I hope everybody enjoyed.
And look, we've been absolutely blown away. Thank you so much for all the support you give it on the Instagram and the YouTube and the Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, all that. Thank you so much. If we are on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, please rate us out of 5 if you can, preferably 5, because that helps more people see it. But any shares, any likes, etc., goes a long way. And thank you so much for all your support so far. I'm Adam.
I'm Calvin.
And this has been One for the Books. Thank you very much.